After her husband Marcus took the house, the car, and custody of both their children, Lena used her last $300 to set up a folding table on a bustling avenue and began selling plates of food drawn from her grandmother's treasured recipe book. Before long, she found herself standing before a television camera. Marcus was watching from afar. He was not prepared for what he was about to see. In the early morning, with the chill still in the air and hot oil shimmering on the stove, Lena stood behind that simple table, wooden spoon in hand and her grandmother's faded notebook of recipes resting beside her. She had not planned to sell food to strangers. She cooked because it was the only language her hands had ever truly known. Lena had grown up on a quiet street in the lower Ninth Ward of New Orleans, in a house filled with the deep, comforting aromas of smoked paprika and brown butter. In a sweet undertone she could never quite name, yet would recognize anywhere, anytime, for the rest of her life. That house had belonged to her grandmother, Ida Mae Thompson, who had lived there for decades, cooking in that same kitchen every single day. Ida cooked for the neighbors. She cooked for the church. She cooked for anyone who appeared at the screen door, looking as though they had not had enough to eat that day. She never asked for payment. She never turned anyone away. On Sundays, she prepared enough food for a crowd and set it out on the porch table, welcoming whoever chose to come. She kept a recipe book with a soft brown leather cover, worn smooth from years of loving hands. Every page was filled with her careful handwriting in blue ink. Hundreds of pages captured decades of cooking, one dish at a time. Notes filled the margins, quiet adjustments, gentle reminders. Add more salt at the end. Do not rush the roux. Let the fire do its work. Lena had stood beside her in that kitchen from the time she could balance on a stool to reach the counter. As a young girl, she held a wooden spoon that seemed too large for her small hand. Ida did not give her little tasks just to keep her busy. She gave her real work. Stir this, taste that. Tell me what is missing. Before long, Lena could make gumbo from memory. Soon she was cooking for the Sunday porch table on her own, while Ida sat by the window and watched with quiet pride. Ida taught Lena how to cook, but she also taught her something far deeper, something that had nothing to do with seasoning or heat or timing. You feed people and you look them in the eye. That is how you show someone they matter. Lena heard those words more times than she could count. She heard them as a child and again as a teenager. And she heard them on the last morning she spent in that kitchen before leaving New Orleans behind for good. Lena left home as a young woman and moved to Atlanta, taking a job at a hotel restaurant on a busy street, starting at the bottom with long hours. She did not mind the work. On the morning she left, Ida placed two things in her hands, the recipe book and a photograph tucked inside the front cover. There was Ida standing in front of the kitchen, wearing a white apron, her hands dusted with flour, smiling as if she held a secret no one else had discovered yet. Lena carried both with her for years. The recipe book found a place on the kitchen shelf in every apartment she called home. She opened it often at first, then less frequently, and eventually not at all after Ida fell ill. Ida Mae Thompson passed away on a quiet morning, at an advanced age, in the same house on that familiar street, in the bed just steps from the kitchen where she had nourished half a neighborhood for decades. Lena flew home for the funeral. She sat in that kitchen for a long while after everyone had gone. She did not cook. She did not open the recipe book. She simply sat at the table, gazing at the stove, the counter, and the wooden spoon still hanging from its hook by the window. She flew back to Atlanta the next day. She placed the recipe book back on the shelf in her own kitchen. She did not open it again, not once in the years that followed, not until the night when everything else had been taken from her. She did not know it then, but the recipes in that book, the photograph tucked inside, and the memory of that kitchen's warmth would become the only things that truly mattered. She would discover that truth, but not yet. Lena met Marcus Reed when she was in her mid-20s. He was a few years older, working as a commercial loan officer at a bank in an upscale part of town. He wore sharp suits and listened when she spoke, remembering details from conversations past. He always had a plan for everything. That was what drew her in at first. Marcus always seemed to have everything figured out. They married a couple of years later in a small ceremony with close family and friends. Lena cooked the reception dinner herself because she wanted to, and because Marcus said it would feel more personal that way. He was right. It was deeply personal. It also marked the beginning of something she would not fully understand for many years to come. They had 2 children, Isaiah, born a few years into the marriage, and Aaliyah, born a few years after that. Lena stopped working at the hotel restaurant when Isaiah was born. Marcus suggested it. "You do not need to work. I have us covered." She agreed. It made sense at the time. Childcare would have cost more than she was earning. Marcus earned enough. She would stay home, raise the children, manage the household, and cook. A couple of years later, Marcus suggested he take over the finances. "You focus on the kids. I will handle the accounts." She agreed. It made sense. Marcus understood money. He worked with numbers every day. She trusted him completely. There was no reason not to. A few years after that, Marcus said the house should be in his name for the mortgage. It was just a technicality. The loan terms would be better with one borrower. She signed. She did not read every page. She did not ask questions. That is what you do when you trust someone completely. You sign, you move forward, you cook dinner. Marcus was skilled at one thing above all else. He controlled the picture. In front of friends, he was the attentive husband. In front of his colleagues at the bank, he was the steady provider. In front of the children, he was the father who planned family trips and coached weekend games. Lena cooked for every dinner party Marcus hosted. She created the meals his colleagues would talk about for days afterward. She set the table. She cleaned up after. Marcus introduced her simply as his wife, and the food seemed to appear as if by magic. He never once said that Lena had made it. He would say they had put together a nice spread or that the food turned out well, then steer the conversation elsewhere. Every connection Marcus built in Atlanta somehow ran through a meal Lena had cooked. Every client dinner, every holiday gathering, every Sunday when he invited a colleague and family over for what he called a casual get-together that actually required Lena to spend hours in the kitchen. Her hands built the foundation of his professional life. Yet her name appeared on none of it. Not on the bank accounts, not on the mortgage, not on the investment portfolio, not on the car title, not on the credit cards. Years of cooking and cleaning and raising 2 children and hosting every gathering and managing every detail of the household. And her name did not appear on a single document that truly mattered. She did not notice. That is the insidious nature of control when it unfolds slowly. You do not feel the ground shifting beneath you. You simply wake up one day and realize the ground is gone, and you are standing on nothing. Marcus had started planning the divorce long before Lena had any clue that anything was wrong. He had brought in a family asset attorney, a man who dealt in structures rather than emotions. Marcus did not need counseling. He needed someone to help him dismantle their life piece by piece. Over many months, the attorney helped restructure the mortgage on the house in Northwest Atlanta, the home Lena had lived in for years. The deed was transferred into Marcus's name only. Marcus brought the papers home one evening and placed them on the kitchen counter while Lena was cooking. He said the bank had offered a better interest rate. It would save them money each month. She just needed to sign the last couple of pages. She signed. She remembered the pen in her hand. She did not remember anyone explaining what she was giving up. Later, the joint savings account was moved. The funds were transferred to an individual account in Marcus's name at a different branch. The statements stopped arriving at the house. Lena did not notice because she had not looked at a bank statement in years. Marcus handled the finances. That was their agreement. Then the investment account was placed into a trust, naming Marcus as the sole beneficiary. The car title was updated to Marcus's name only. Credit cards in Lena's name were closed. Marcus told her there had been fraud on the account and new cards had been issued. The new cards arrived in his name. Lena never saw them. Over those many months, every document was signed or processed while Lena cooked dinner, helped Isaiah with homework, drove Aaliyah to her activities, and trusted the man she had built a life with for years. The papers arrived one afternoon. Lena was standing in the kitchen. She had just turned off the stove. She was holding a dish towel. Marcus set the envelope on the counter between the salt shaker and a bowl of rice. She opened it. She read the first page. She did not sit down. She stood and read every page to the end. Then she set the papers on the counter exactly where the envelope had been placed. She did not say a word. Marcus stood in the doorway. He had been watching her read. She looked at him. He looked at her. Neither spoke. The legal process moved quickly because Marcus and his attorney had been preparing for a long time. The attorney filed for primary custody. The argument was straightforward. Lena had no income. She had no individual bank account. She had no recent employment history. She had no assets in her name. She had no credit history. On paper, Lena did not exist. The attorney presented financial records showing Marcus as the sole provider. He presented the mortgage in Marcus's name. He presented the bank accounts in Marcus's name. He presented a stable home with rooms for the children and a father with a solid salary. The judge granted Marcus temporary primary custody of Isaiah and Aaliyah pending the final divorce proceedings. Temporary. But the word did not feel temporary to Lena. It felt like a door closing. She packed one suitcase. She took her clothes. She took the recipe book from the shelf. She took the photograph tucked inside the front cover. There was $300 left in an old checking account that neither Marcus nor his attorney had discovered. It was a joint account from the early days of their marriage that Lena had forgotten about and Marcus had never bothered to close. That small sum was the one thing they missed. She walked out of the house on a morning. Years of memories lived in that house. The stove where she had cooked countless meals, the counter where she had rolled dough with Aaliyah on weekend mornings, the kitchen table where Isaiah had done his homework every evening while she cooked beside him. She didn't cry. She packed. Tasha pulled up in her car, engine running. She did not need to get out. Lena placed the suitcase in the back seat and climbed in. She closed the door. Tasha drove away from the curb. Lena did not look back at the house. She looked down at the recipe book in her lap, its brown leather cover, the blue ink inside, the photograph of a woman in a white apron smiling as if she knew something no one else knew yet. With only $300 to her name, no house, no car, no children by her side, no credit, no employment history, no account bearing her name, Marcus had taken the house. He had taken the car. He had taken the children. He had taken years of her hands in that kitchen and erased them from every document that existed. He had left her with $300 and a recipe book. He thought he had left her with nothing at all. Tasha lived in a modest two-bedroom apartment in East Atlanta. She worked night shifts as a nurse at a major hospital and came home to a quiet space that still smelled of coffee brewed many hours earlier. Lena slept on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket Tasha had pulled from the hall closet with a pillow from the spare room. For the first few days, Lena did not leave the apartment. She ate very little. She sat by the window in the living room and watched the parking lot and the street beyond, where people walked to places they needed to be. Her phone held 2 messages from Isaiah. The first asked when she was coming back. The second said, Aaliyah kept asking about her. Lena read both messages. She did not reply. She did not know what to say. She could not tell her son she was coming back because she did not know if that was true. She could not tell him she was fine because she was sitting on a borrowed sofa with $300 and no answers to give. She placed the phone face down on the cushion. Days of emptiness passed. Days of sitting and not calling and not eating enough and not knowing what the next step should be. One night, Lena could not sleep. Tasha was at work. The apartment was dark. Lena lay on the sofa staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of a car passing on the street outside, and then silence again. She sat up. She reached into her bag on the floor beside the sofa. She pulled out the recipe book. She had not opened it in years. Not since the funeral. Not since she had sat in Ida's kitchen and looked at the stove and the counter and the wooden spoon and decided she could not open this book without hearing her grandmother's voice inside it. She opened it. The photograph fell out of the front cover and landed on her lap. Ida Mae Thompson, years ago. White apron. Flour on her hands, smiling like she knew something nobody else knew yet. Lena held the photograph for a long time. She didn't move. She didn't make a sound. Then, she turned to the first page. Ida's handwriting, blue ink, careful letters. The recipe for red beans and rice. In the margin, a note in smaller script. Do not rush the roux. Let the fire do its work. She turned another page. Fried catfish. A note beside the measurements. More salt at the end. Always at the end. She turned another page. Smothered chicken. A note at the bottom. This one is for when someone needs to feel better and does not know how to ask. Every page had a note. Every note sounded as though Ida were standing beside her in that dark apartment, speaking to her the way she always had. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, just present. Lena closed the book. She held it against her chest. She sat on that sofa in the dark for a while longer. The next morning she got up before Tasha came home. She went into the kitchen. She opened the recipe book on the counter. She turned to a certain page. She started cooking. When Tasha opened the front door later that morning, the apartment smelled like smoked paprika and brown butter and that sweet something underneath. The same smell. The same one from the kitchen in New Orleans. The same one Lena had carried in her memory for so long. Tasha stood in the doorway. Lena stood at the stove. They looked at each other. Neither said much at first. I need to find somewhere to sell this, Lena said. I know a Saturday market, Tasha replied. Lena divided the $300 on the kitchen table that afternoon, some for the food handler's permit and a temporary vendor license, some for ingredients, some for containers and foil trays and plastic forks, a small amount left over as a tiny buffer. She took the bus to the county health department one morning. She stood in line for hours, paid the fee, and received her permit and a sheet of paper listing what she could and could not do. She bought ingredients at a discount grocery. Chicken, rice, beans, spices, oil. Foil trays from a restaurant supply store. Containers, plastic forks, paper napkins. On a Saturday morning, Lena carried 2 large pots and a folding table borrowed from a local church onto the bus. She rode to the community market in East Atlanta. She set up at the far end of the row, between a woman selling candles and a man selling wooden cutting boards. The other vendors had banners, canopies, branded signs, tablecloths, and business cards. Lena had a folding table, 2 pots, some foil containers, and a piece of cardboard with her prices written in marker. She sold a few containers that first day. People walked past. They looked. Some slowed. Most kept walking. Lena stood behind the table and did not call out. She did not wave anyone over. She stood and waited. Later, a woman stopped. She was in her middle years, wearing a church hat. She bought 1 container. She opened it right there at the table and ate standing up. She did not say anything for a moment. Then she looked at Lena. "This tastes like my grandmother's cooking," she said. She bought 3 more containers. She asked Lena her name. She asked if Lena would be there the following Saturday. Lena said yes. By the end of the day, Lena had sold a good number of containers. After covering the cost of ingredients and supplies, she had some money in hand on the bus ride back. It was not enough for rent or a deposit. It was barely enough for ingredients for the next market. But a woman had come back for seconds. That was the only number that truly mattered. The following week, she sold more. Then more. Then, she sold out before the afternoon was over. The numbers climbed slowly but steadily. There was a problem, though. Lena was cooking in Tasha's kitchen. Under the local cottage food law, a home kitchen could be used for certain foods for direct sale. But there were limits. Baked goods and some shelf-stable items were allowed. Prepared meals with meat, rice, and perishable ingredients sold at public markets required a licensed commercial kitchen. Lena had been selling for several weeks. She was in violation of the health code and did not know it. She found out at the public library one afternoon. She did not have a laptop or internet at the apartment. She sat at a library computer for hours and read the state regulations line by line. A licensed commercial kitchen. Inspected, certified, available for hourly rental at shared kitchen facilities across the city. She searched for pricing. It would cost a certain amount per hour depending on the location. She did the math on the back of a receipt. She would need to sell enough containers each week just to cover the kitchen rental before even buying ingredients, bus fare, and supplies. A food truck would solve the mobility issue. She could cook and sell from the same vehicle. She could go where the customers were instead of waiting at one market on one day. She searched for used food trucks. They cost far more than she had. So she did what she could. She registered for 3 markets instead of 1. Tuesday evenings at one farmer's market, Thursday afternoons at another community market, Saturday mornings at the East Atlanta one. 3 markets, 3 bus rides with 2 pots, a folding table, and a rolling cart she bought cheaply at a thrift store. This was not a food truck dream. This was a woman pulling a cart onto a city bus early in the morning to sell food cooked in a kitchen she could not legally use. That was the reality. While Lena pulled that cart across 3 bus routes, Marcus sat in his office at the bank and ate lunch at his desk. He did not think about where Lena was or what she was doing. He had the house, he had the car, he had the children. He had structured everything to make sure she had nothing. And in his mind, she did have nothing. A woman with $300 and a recipe book was not a threat. He would be wrong about that, but not yet. Pastor Gloria Bennett had been watching Lena for several weeks. She was older and had run Greater Hope Baptist Church on a road in southeast Atlanta for many years. She knew everyone in the congregation, and she knew when someone new was using her building and why. Lena had started renting the church's commercial kitchen after Tasha made the introduction. The church had a certified kitchen in the basement that it rented to small vendors and caterers for a modest hourly fee. Lena booked several hours a couple of days a week and cooked enough for the 3 markets. Pastor Gloria did not say anything to Lena for the first several weeks. She came downstairs once or twice during Lena's cooking hours. She stood in the doorway. She watched. She smelled whatever was coming off that stove. She went back upstairs. One evening after Lena had finished cleaning the kitchen, Pastor Gloria came downstairs. She sat down at the prep table. She asked Lena to sit. Lena sat. "I have been smelling your food for weeks," Pastor Gloria said. "I have been watching you carry those pots in here early in the morning. I have been watching you clean this kitchen better than anyone who has ever rented it." She paused. "What are you doing, and who are you doing it for?" Lena told her. Short sentences, no drama, no self-pity. She told her about the divorce. She told her about the $300. She told her about the recipe book and the markets and the bus routes and the rolling cart. Pastor Gloria listened to all of it. Then she told Lena something. Her husband, Walter, had died years earlier. He had been a deacon and a pitmaster. He owned a food truck, green and white. He parked it behind the church every Sunday after service and sold barbecue plates. The line went around the building. When Walter died, Gloria could not bring herself to sell the truck. She parked it behind the fellowship hall and covered it with a tarp. For years. The engine had not turned over in a long time. The paint was peeling. 2 of the tires were flat. The gas line to the stove inside needed replacing. The refrigeration unit had stopped working years ago. Nobody wanted it. Nobody used it. Every year, Gloria told herself she would figure out what to do with it. Every year, she did not. "Come with me," she said. She walked Lena around the back of the church to the gravel lot behind the fellowship hall. She pulled the tarp back. Green paint faded and chipping. Flat tires. Dust on every window. A dent in the rear bumper. Lena opened the side door and stepped inside. 2 gas burners. 1 prep counter. A small refrigerator that did not run. A serving window with a metal shutter that stuck halfway open. Lena stood inside that truck for a while. She put her hands on the counter. She looked at the burners in the window in the space where plates would be handed out. She could see it. For the first time since the sofa in Tasha's apartment, she could see what the next chapter might look like. "I'm not giving this to you," Pastor Gloria said. "Walter built this and I will not give it away. But I will rent it to you for a modest monthly fee. You fix it yourself. If it runs and your business holds for a while, I will sell it to you at what Walter paid for it years ago." Lena looked at her. "I do not have money to fix it." "You have a church full of people who know how to fix things," Gloria said. "Ask." Darnell, a mechanic and longtime member of the church, looked at the engine one Saturday morning and told Lena the fuel pump needed replacing and the battery was dead and the alternator was corroded. Parts would cost a certain amount. He would do the labor for free because Pastor Gloria asked, And because he believed if a woman was willing to pull a cart onto a bus early in the morning, she deserved a truck that started. Renee, who worked at an auto body shop, offered to sand down and repaint the truck in exchange for a couple of months of free meals. Lena agreed. Lena paid for the parts with earnings from several weeks of markets. Darnell worked several Saturdays in a row. Renee came after her shifts on weekday evenings. After some time, the engine turned over. The tires were replaced. The gas line was reconnected. The paint was new, a deep brown with gold lettering on the side. Lena painted the name herself. She used a stencil she cut from cardboard and gold paint she bought at a hardware store. Ida's table. Her grandmother's name, on a truck that ran in a parking lot behind a church in southeast Atlanta. Lena stood in front of it for a few minutes after the last coat dried. She did not say anything. She looked at the name, and she looked at the serving window, and she looked at the road beyond the parking lot that went in every direction. She reached into her bag and took out the photograph. Ida Mae Thompson, years ago, white apron, smiling like she knew something nobody else knew yet. Lena taped it to the wall inside the truck next to the serving window. Then she went inside and turned the burners on. In the first period on the road, Lena parked on a street in the industrial area south of the old stadium. During lunch hours, warehouse workers and truck drivers and construction crews from a nearby site. She sold plates for a set price each, smothered chicken over rice, red beans, fried catfish on certain days. She sold a good number the first week. After costs for ingredients, gas for the truck, the monthly rental split across days, and permit fees, the net was modest on the days she worked. Not enough for rent, not enough for a deposit. Enough to keep the truck running and the stove lit. The next week she sold more, then more. The construction crew started showing up in groups. A foreman came every day around the same time. He did not say much. He ordered the same thing: smothered chicken. Extra rice, he told his crew. His crew told the crew on the next site over. Before long, Lena was selling a solid number of plates each day she worked. She kept a notebook. Every night, Lena sat at the small table in Tasha's apartment and wrote in a notebook. Revenue on the left side, costs on the right, notes at the bottom. Certain dishes sold out first on particular days. Other dishes moved slower. Add corn muffins next time. In the following period, she added a second stop, downtown near a busy intersection. Evening hours. The after-work crowd. Office workers walking to parking decks. Nurses coming off shift at the hospital. The evening location doubled her customer base. Revenue climbed. Still not enough for a lease, but closer. Before long, the phone started ringing. Customers calling to ask where she would be parked. Are you on 5th today? Are you coming to this street this week? Lena did not have a website. She did not have a marketing plan. She had a phone number written on the side of the truck and plates that sold out every day. Tasha set up a social media page one afternoon. Ida's table. One photograph of the truck, the menu, the daily location posted every morning. Before long, the page had many followers. Then more. People shared it. People tagged friends. People posted photographs of their plates and wrote things underneath like, "Best soul food in Atlanta." And, "This reminds me of home." Lena kept the notebook. She did not miss a single night of writing in it. She tracked every dollar in and every dollar out the way her grandmother used to track every recipe. Carefully. In ink, without shortcuts. Vanessa stopped by the truck one day. She brought water bottles and helped wipe down the counter after the lunch rush. She asked how business was going. Lena told her. Vanessa smiled and said she was proud of her. Lena called Isaiah and Aaliyah every evening. The custody arrangement allowed 2 afternoon visits per week and every other weekend. Lena brought food to every visit. She packed it in foil containers and carried it on the bus to Marcus's house, the house she was no longer allowed inside. She handed the bag to Isaiah at the door. She sat on the porch steps with both children and watched them eat. Aaliyah said the same thing every time. "This is the best food in the world, Mom." Lena did not say anything. She smiled. One evening, Isaiah said something else. He said it quietly between bites. "Dad asked why you were selling food on the street." Lena looked at him. "What did you tell him?" "I told him it was good," Isaiah said. Marcus knew. He had been asking the children questions. Where does she park? How many customers? Is anyone helping her? The questions sounded casual. They were not casual. Marcus was keeping track. Lena did not know that yet. She would find out soon. Sometime after the divorce, Lena filed a motion for joint custody of Isaiah and Aaliyah. Her lawyer, attorney Sophia, prepared the filing. Sophia had handled many custody cases. She had not lost one where the mother could demonstrate stable income and housing. She had also never gone up against Marcus's attorney. Marcus's attorney filed a response quickly. The response was lengthy. The custody review hearing was held at the County Superior Court on a weekday morning. Judge Eleanor Maynard presiding. Lena sat on one side of the courtroom. Marcus sat on the other. They did not look at each other. Marcus's attorney went first. He presented screenshots of the Ida's Table social media page. He presented photographs of the food truck parked on the street. He presented Lena's self-reported income from months of operation and noted that it fluctuated from week to week. He presented the fact that Lena had been living on a friend's sofa for the first couple of months following the divorce and had only recently secured independent housing. He framed every piece of evidence the same way. Instability. A woman who could not hold consistent income. A woman without a permanent address for the first period. A woman running what he called an informal street food operation rather than a real business. This is not a stable environment for children, the attorney said. He did not mention that Lena had a food handler's permit. He did not mention the commercial kitchen certification. He did not mention the truck rental agreement or the vendor license or the tax filings Sophia had prepared. He mentioned none of those things because mentioning them would make Lena look like what she was, a business owner. Sophia went second. She was younger than Marcus's attorney. She did not have his presence or his reputation in that courtroom. She had a folder. Inside the folder, months of self-employment tax filings showing consistent upward revenue. A signed lease for a studio apartment on a street in the city. Lena's name on it. A food handler's permit from the county. A commercial kitchen rental agreement with the church. A truck lease agreement with Pastor Gloria. Many letters from regular customers. Each one handwritten, each one saying the same thing in different words. This woman works hard. This woman feeds people. This woman shows up. And one letter from Pastor Gloria. Many years running a church in southeast Atlanta, stating that Lena had rented the kitchen for months without missing a single payment, stating that Lena was a responsible tenant and a person of character, stating that the community trusted her with their food and with their children. Judge Maynard read through everything. She looked at the attorneys. She looked at Lena. She did not rule. She continued the case for a period. She said she wanted to see sustained income and confirmed housing stability before making a custody determination. She said both parents would maintain the current arrangement during the continuance. She closed the folder and called the next case. Lena walked out of this courtroom and stood in the parking lot. She needed to hold steady sales for the coming period, without a gap. She needed to keep the apartment. She needed to file more months of clean tax records. She needed to not miss a single payment on anything. She looked at her phone. One message from Aaliyah. "Are you coming to get us, Mom?" In the following days, Lena worked long hours. She cooked in the church kitchen starting early. She drove the truck to the industrial area for lunch. She drove downtown for dinner. She added 2 new dishes from the recipe book. Ida's fried okra, Ida's peach cobbler, both sold out the first day. Revenue climbed. She signed a lease renewal on the studio apartment, confirmed address through the end of the year. She mailed a copy to Sophia. She filed another month of self-employment taxes, gross revenue up from the month before. One evening, a woman walked up to the serving window on the busy downtown street. She was younger, short hair, a press badge clipped to her jacket. She ordered 1 plate of smothered chicken. She ate standing on the sidewalk a short distance from the truck. She finished. She came back. "How long have you been doing this?" she said. Lena told her in short sentences. No drama. The woman nodded. She said her name was Jasmine Ellis. She worked at the local news affiliate. She was producing a series on small business owners in communities across Atlanta. "Can I feature you?" she said. Lena looked at her. "I need to think about it." "Take your time," Jasmine said. Lena called Tasha that night from the studio apartment. She sat on the floor next to the mattress with the phone on speaker and the recipe book open on the counter across the room. "A reporter wants to do a piece on me," Lena said. Tasha was quiet for a moment. "What would Ida say?" Tasha said. Lena looked at the recipe book across the room. She did not answer right away. She called Jasmine the next morning. Vanessa called Lena every week. She had been calling since a couple of months after the divorce. She was Marcus's younger sister. She lived in a townhouse she had bought a few years earlier with Marcus as the co-signer on the mortgage. When the divorce happened, Vanessa reached out to Lena. She said she did not agree with what Marcus had done. She said family was family, regardless of legal papers. She said she wanted to help however she could. She came to the truck. She helped wipe down the counter after lunch. She brought paper towels and napkins from the wholesale club because she had a membership and Lena did not. She asked how the hearing went. She asked if Lena was doing okay. She asked about the children. Lena answered every question honestly because Vanessa was family, because Vanessa had shown up when no one else from Marcus's side had, because there was no reason not to trust her. The week Jasmine came to the truck, Vanessa called Lena one evening. The conversation was normal. "How is business? How are the kids?" Then Vanessa asked a question she had not asked before. "Someone told me a reporter came by the truck. What is that about?" Lena told her, a local news piece on small business owners. Jasmine wanted to film at the truck and do a short interview. Nothing about the divorce, just the food. Oh, soticita. Just the story of how she started. Vanessa listened. She said that sounded wonderful. She said she was proud of Lena. She said she hoped it would bring more customers. Vanessa sent the same information to Marcus shortly after. The message was a text. It included what Lena had told her, the reporter's name, the station, the topic of the series, the timeline for filming. Vanessa typed it out on her phone while sitting in her car in a parking lot and sent it to her brother who was sitting in the house that used to belong to his wife. This was not the first message. Vanessa had been sending updates to Marcus since the beginning, when Lena bought the truck, when she started at the markets, when she hired the mechanic from the church, when she filed for joint custody. Every piece of information Lena shared with the woman she believed was her ally went directly to the man who had taken everything from her. Vanessa was not cruel. She was not vindictive. She did not enjoy what she was doing. She was in debt. The townhouse carried a mortgage. Marcus was the co-signer. Sometime before the divorce, he had reminded Vanessa of that fact during a phone call. He did not threaten. He did not raise his voice. He told her he expected her to keep him informed about Lena's situation and that if she chose not to, he would remove himself from the mortgage agreement. Without Marcus's name on the loan, Vanessa's credit score would not support the mortgage on its own. She would lose the townhouse. She had calculated this already. She had run the numbers the same night Marcus called. She knew exactly what would happen. So she called Lena every week. She asked careful questions. She reported back. She chose her own house over her conscience. That was the math she did. Whether it was the right math is a question only Vanessa could answer, and she had not answered it yet. Lena did not know. She would not find out for a while, but the information was already moving. Marcus had the reporter's name. He had the timeline, and he had his attorney on speed dial. Marcus called Lena one evening. She was in the truck on the busy street. The dinner rush had just ended. She saw his name on the screen and stood there for a moment with the phone in her hand and the smell of the kitchen still thick in the air around her. She picked up. He used her name softly, the way he used to when he wanted something to sound like it was her idea. He said the divorce was a private matter. He said going on television with their personal business would hurt the children. He said Isaiah was already asking questions at school. He said Aaliyah had been quiet lately. He said Lena needed to think about what was best for them. Lena listened to every word. She did not interrupt. She let him finish. "I'm not telling our story, Marcus," she said. "I am building mine." She hung up. She put the phone on the counter next to the stove. She stood there for a few seconds, then she started cleaning up for the night. Marcus called his attorney within the hour. The attorney drafted a cease and desist letter addressed to Jasmine at the news station. The letter stated that any broadcast segment referencing Marcus Reed or the details of his divorce proceedings would be considered defamatory and would result in legal action. The attorney sent it by certified mail and by email on the same day. This was Marcus's mistake, the one that would cost him everything he was trying to protect. Jasmine received the letter one morning. She read it. She took it to her executive producer. The executive producer read it. He sat back in his chair and looked at Jasmine. The original segment was supposed to be short, a feel-good local piece about a woman in a food truck. Human interest. The kind of story people watch and forget by dinner. The cease and desist changed that. A man sending a legal threat to a news station to stop a story about his ex-wife selling plates of food from a truck. The executive producer saw something bigger. Not a food story. A power story. A woman who lost everything rebuilding in public while the man who took it tried to shut her down from behind a lawyer's desk. The segment grew longer, moved to a better time slot, expanded from a single camera visit to a multi-day shoot. Marcus had turned a food truck story into a story about control, the exact thing he did not want anyone to see. At the same time, the attorney filed a supplemental brief with the judge's court. The filing argued that Lena was actively seeking media attention rather than focusing on the stability of her children. The attorney attached screenshots of the social media page with many followers. He attached Jasmine's initial inquiry email to Lena. He framed the television appearance as evidence of misplaced priorities. The brief landed on the judge's desk sometime before the continued hearing. The segment had not yet aired. The court did not know what the segment would contain. Neither did Marcus. Neither did Lena. Jasmine and a small crew arrived at the church kitchen early one morning. Lena was already inside. The stove was on. The recipe book was open on the counter to a certain page. Ida's smothered chicken. Jasmine did not direct anything. She told the cameraman to shoot what he saw. Lena cooked the way she cooked every morning. She did not look at the camera. She did not perform. She measured and stirred and tasted and adjusted the way Ida had taught her to do it many years ago in the kitchen in New Orleans. They followed her to the truck. They filmed her driving to the lunch spot. They filmed the setup, the serving window opening, the first customers walking up, the line that stretched past the corner by midday. Jasmine interviewed Lena inside the truck between the lunch and dinner shifts. Lena sat on the prep stool with her hands in her lap. She told Jasmine she started with $300 and a folding table and a recipe book her grandmother gave her when she left New Orleans. She did not say Marcus's name. She did not describe the divorce. She did not say what was taken from her or how it was done. "I lost everything I thought I had," Lena said. "Then I found everything I actually needed." The camera moved to the recipe book. Brown leather cover, blue ink, Ada's handwriting, notes in the margins, "Do not rush the roux." The photograph of Ida taped to the wall next to the serving window, white apron, flour on her hands, smiling. Jasmine interviewed 3 customers. The woman from the very first Saturday at the market was one of them. Middle years, church hat. She looked at the camera and said what she had said to Lena months earlier. "This food reminds me of home. I do not know how she does it." The segment aired on a weekday evening. It was longer than originally planned. The title card read, "Ida's Table, One Woman, $300 and a Recipe Book." Within a short time, the social media page went from many followers to thousands more. The line at the truck doubled. Other stations contacted Jasmine requesting permission to use the footage. The clip was shared across social media. Many views in the first week. People who had never heard of Ida's Table shared the segment with a sentence underneath. "You need to watch this." People who had eaten at the truck shared it with a different sentence. "I knew this food was special. Now you know why." You already know who was watching. That evening, after the last customer left, Lena closed the serving window. She turned off the burners. She stood alone inside the truck. The recipe book was open on the counter. The photograph of Ida was on the wall beside her. The truck smelled like smoked paprika and brown butter and something sweet underneath. Lena stood there for a while. She did not say anything. She closed the book. She turned off the lights. Marcus was sitting in the living room of the house when the segment started. The television was on. He was not watching it. He was reading something on his phone. Then he heard the name, Ida's Table. He looked up. He saw the truck, brown paint, gold lettering, a serving window with a line of people standing in front of it. He saw Lena inside the truck standing at the stove, wearing the same apron she had worn in his kitchen for years, tilting her head the same way she always did when she tasted something, moving her hands the same way. The same way every single day for years in a kitchen he walked through without stopping. He saw the recipe book, the brown leather cover. He recognized it. It had sat on the shelf above the microwave in his kitchen for the entire length of their marriage. He had never opened it, not once in all those years. He did not know what was inside. He saw the photograph of Ida on the wall. He did not recognize the woman in it. He had lived in the same house as that photograph for years, and he had never asked who it was. He heard a customer say, "This food reminds me of home." He heard Lena say, "I lost everything I thought I had. Then I found everything I actually needed." He saw the number on the screen, $300. That was what the attorney had told him was left in the old checking account. "Not worth pursuing," the attorney had said. $300 is not material. Marcus had agreed. $300 was nothing. $300 was a food truck with thousands of followers and a line around the block and a news segment that many people had already watched. Marcus picked up the remote. He turned the television off. He sat in the living room of the house he had taken from his wife and looked at the dark screen. He had taken the house. He had taken the car. He had taken custody of both children. He had spent many months restructuring every asset so her name appeared on nothing. He had left her with $300 and a recipe book because those were the two things his lawyer said were not worth the paperwork. The recipe book was on television. The $300 had built something thousands of people were following. The woman he had removed from every document was standing in front of a camera telling the city that she had found everything she needed. And the thing she found was the thing that had been in his house for years, on his shelf, in his kitchen, right in front of him. He did not see it then. He saw it now. It was too late. Marcus picked up his phone. He called his attorney. "Can we use this against her in court?" he said. The continued hearing was held on a weekday morning at the County Superior Court, Judge Eleanor Maynard presiding. Same courtroom, same two tables. Lena on the left, Marcus on the right. Marcus's attorney went first. He had prepared a new argument built on top of the old one. He presented the television segment as Exhibit A. He presented screenshots of the social media page showing thousands of followers. He presented the cease and desist letter his own office had sent. He framed the entire sequence as evidence that Lena had chosen public attention over parental responsibility. The respondent has prioritized media exposure and social media growth over demonstrating the kind of stable private environment this court requested some time ago, the attorney said. He did not mention that the cease and desist was what escalated the segment from short to longer. He did not mention that Lena had not sought the reporter out. He did not mention that his own legal action had turned a small local story into something many people watched. Sophia went second. She laid out months of self-employment tax records, revenue increasing every month. She presented the lease renewal for the studio apartment. She presented a report from the court-appointed social worker who had visited Lena's home during the period and found it clean and suitable and stable. She presented many letters from community members, customers, Pastor Gloria, Tasha, Darnell, Renee, people who knew Lena and what she had built and how she had built it. Then Sophia addressed the television segment directly. She told the court that Jasmine had approached Lena as a customer first and as a journalist second. That Lena had not contacted the station. That Lena had not mentioned Marcus or the divorce on camera. That the only party who had introduced legal conflict into the media coverage was Marcus himself through the cease and desist. The petitioner did not seek attention, Sophia said. She sold plates of food. Attention found her. Judge Maynard looked at the filings. She looked at both tables. She asked if either party had additional witnesses. Marcus's attorney said no. Sophia said yes. The courtroom door opened. Vanessa Reed walked in. Marcus turned in his chair. He looked at his sister. Vanessa did not look at him. She walked to the front of the courtroom and took the witness stand. Sophia asked Vanessa to state her relationship to both parties. Vanessa said she was Marcus's sister. She said she had been in contact with Lena since a couple of months after the divorce. Sophia asked Vanessa why she had contacted Lena. Vanessa said she wanted to help. She said she believed what Marcus did was wrong. Sophia asked Vanessa if she had communicated information about Lena to Marcus during that time. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, yes. She said Marcus had asked her to monitor Lena's activities and report back. She said she had done so for approximately several months. She said the information she provided included details about the food truck business, the custody filing, the reporter, and the timeline for the television segment. Sophia asked why Vanessa had agreed to do this. Vanessa said Marcus was the co-signer on her mortgage. She said he told her that if she did not cooperate, he would remove himself from the loan. She said she could not afford the mortgage on her own. Sophia asked what changed. Vanessa said Marcus removed himself from the mortgage anyway some time ago because she had not forwarded information about the television segment fast enough. Vanessa said she lost the townhouse. The bank began foreclosure proceedings shortly after Marcus withdrew his name. Sophia presented printed text messages between Vanessa and Marcus, many messages over several months, dates, times, content. Each one sent within minutes of a conversation Vanessa had with Lena, each one containing information Lena had shared in confidence. Judge Maynard read through the messages. She read them slowly. She looked at Marcus. She looked at his attorney. She closed the folder. The court finds that the father engaged in a pattern of surveillance and interference through a third party that is inconsistent with the best interests of the children, she said. Primary custody is hereby transferred to the mother, effective immediately. The father retains visitation rights on a schedule to be determined by this court within a short period. She called the next case. Lena walked out of the courtroom. She stood on the steps outside. She took out her phone. She called Isaiah. You are coming home. The court filing became public record the following week. Vanessa's text messages were referenced in the custody determination. The pattern of surveillance was described in legal language that anyone who read it could understand. Marcus Reed had used his sister to spy on his ex-wife during an active custody proceeding. Two business partners at the bank read the filing. Marcus had been managing commercial loan portfolios for clients who trusted him with their money and their information. Trust was the product. The filing described a man who had used personal leverage to coerce a family member into conducting surveillance. The partners did not call Marcus to discuss it. They reassigned his accounts. He lost 2 commercial contracts worth a combined significant amount in fees within the month, not because anyone punished him, because nobody wanted to work with him anymore. The woman Marcus had been seeing left some time later. Her name was Brooke. She was younger. She worked in marketing at a firm downtown. She had started seeing Marcus some time before the divorce papers were served. She had never met Lena. She had never been to the house while Lena lived there. She knew Marcus as a man with a house and a title and a reputation. When the court filing went public, the house was still there, but the title and the reputation were not. Brooke stopped returning his calls one day. She did not explain. She did not need to. She had been there for what Marcus represented. What he represented was gone. The attorney sent the final invoice, a large sum. Many months of legal strategy, the filing fees, the custody hearings, the cease and desist, the supplemental briefs, the hours billed at a high rate. Marcus had paid a large sum to take everything from a woman who had $300. The woman with $300 got her children back. The man with large legal bills sat in a modest apartment with a court record that followed his name. Marcus called Lena once from that apartment one evening. Lena was in the kitchen of the studio. She saw his name on the screen. She put the phone face down on the counter. She let it ring until it stopped. Marcus called Isaiah the next day. Isaiah picked up. Marcus said, "I miss you, son." Isaiah was quiet for a few seconds. "Mom is cooking tonight," he said. "I have to go." He hung up, not angry, not cold, just somewhere else now, living a life that had moved on without the man who thought he controlled where it went. Marcus sat in that apartment, 1 bedroom, a kitchen he did not use. Years of building something he was certain he controlled. He took the house. He lost the house to mortgage payments he could no longer cover. He took the car. The car sat in a parking lot he could not afford to maintain. He took the children. The children chose to leave. He spent many months making sure Lena had nothing. He left her with $300 and a recipe book. And the $300 built a truck, and the recipe book built a name, and the name built a line around the block. And the line built a life that thousands of people followed, and a courtroom looked at and said, "This is the parent these children belong with." He had built exactly what he deserved. The first evening, Isaiah and Aaliyah stayed at the apartment on the street. It was a weekday in late autumn. Lena had moved a second mattress into the bedroom that morning. She put fresh sheets on it. She set the small table by the kitchen window with 3 plates, 3 glasses, 3 forks. She opened the recipe book to the first page, red beans and rice, the first recipe Ida ever wrote down, the one with the note in the margin that said, "This one is for when someone comes home." Lena cooked it the way Ida taught her. Slowly, without rushing, she let the fire do its work. On the wall above the stove, she had hung the photograph, framed now, plain wood, clean glass. Ida Mae Thompson, years ago, white apron, flour on her hands, smiling like she knew something nobody else knew yet. Aaliyah came into this kitchen first. She looked at the photograph on the wall. "Who is that?" she said. "That is the woman who taught me everything I know," Lena said. They sat down, 3 people at a small table in a studio apartment. Lena put the food on their plates. Isaiah ate without talking. Aaliyah took a bite. She looked up at her mother. "This is the best food in the world, Mom." The same words, the same voice, a different place. Not the porch steps of a house she was no longer allowed inside. Not a visit with a time limit. Home. Lena looked at her children. She looked at the photograph on the wall. She looked at the recipe book open on the counter. She could smell it, smoked paprika and brown butter, and something sweet underneath. You feed people and you look them in the eye. That is how you tell someone they matter. Lena did not need to say anything. She watched her children eat. Marcus took the house. He took the car. He took the children. He took years of Lena's work and made it disappear from every document he could find. He left her with $300 and a recipe book. He thought he left her with nothing. He left her with everything because the one thing Marcus never understood about Lena, the one thing he could not take because he could not see it, was where she came from. A kitchen in New Orleans, a grandmother who fed anyone who was hungry and never asked for money, a recipe book with hundreds of pages of careful handwriting and notes in the margins that said things like, "Do not rush the roux, let the fire do its work. And this one is for when someone comes home." He had every advantage. He had lawyers and many months and every document restructured in his name. And he still missed the thing that mattered. You cannot take what you cannot name on a document, and you cannot buy back what you never learned to value. Some people spend their whole lives building things they can put their name on. Lena inherited something that could not be filed or transferred or locked in a trust. A recipe, a wooden spoon, a photograph of a woman in a white apron who bottled her whole life into a book and trusted that the right person would carry it forward. The people who only see what something is worth on paper will always miss what actually matters. And by the time they realize it, it is already too late. Marcus came back after the divorce and tried to use the courts to take Ida's table from Lena the same way he took the house. He lost. He lost the contracts. He lost the woman he left Lena for. He lost his reputation. He lost everything he spent years building. Here's the question. If someone spent many months planning to take everything from you and then watched you rebuild from $300 while they lost it all, would you let them back into your life, or would you let them sit with what they built? This one is going to divide the room. Leave your answer below. Subscribe. I will see you in the next one. This story is a work of fiction. The names, characters, locations, and events are entirely imagined. No real person is depicted or referenced. However, the emotions and the legal realities in this story are inspired by patterns that affect real families across America every single year. Coercive control in marriage, hidden asset restructuring during divorce proceedings, and custody battles shaped by financial inequality are not fiction. They happen every day in courtrooms, in every state. I wrote this story because I grew up watching women in my family cook for everyone and receive credit from no one. The kitchen was where love happened in my household. It was where problems got solved, and where people got fed, and where nobody ever thought to put any of it on a balance sheet. I wanted to write a story where the kitchen won, where the thing nobody counted was the thing that counted the most. If you or someone you know is going through a divorce, please consult a family law attorney. Understanding your rights to marital property, custody, and financial protection is not optional. It is survival. Organizations like the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 and womenslaw.org offer free legal resources and support for anyone navigating these situations. Every plate Lena served was a conversation. Every recipe was a letter from her grandmother. Some things cannot be taken because they were never on paper to begin with. Thank you for watching.